National Basketball League has just 5 rounds left in the regular season, but it continues to throw up drama, controversy and absolutely thrilling finishes. Hello and welcome everyone to another edition of WNBL iTV. I'm Darren Boyd, next to my regular sparring partner Laurie Chiswick. Laurie, what a weekend we've just had.
Wow, Darren, like you said, there were a lot of interesting things that happened on the weekend, right? To have an ejection, a buzzer beater, some upsets, all sorts of things. Yeah,
it really was wonderful. Make sure you get in contact with us on Facebook and also Twitter. You can follow us there at WNBL, of course. We've had quite a few Twitter correspondents, Laurie, wanting to see the Christy Harrow miracle. So we'll have that coming up later on.
Oh, and it certainly was a miracle. It was fantastic.
But before we get into that, let's look at Bendigo's first game of the weekend. They played the Dandenong Rangers on Friday night. It was our ABC TV match of the week. So we'll have the ABC highlights here, Laurie. But it was a game that, when I spoke to Bernie Harrow afterwards, he said he felt it was played with finals-like intensity, and he's really proud of his team.
Well, look, it sort of ebbed and flowed, the game, Darren. We know that Bendigo came out very strongly, and it was sort of back and forth until I thought they really started to show why they are the best defensive team in the competition so far. Yeah,
it was an interesting one. They were able to lock down on Jenna O'Hea and Kathleen McLeod and Steph Cumming too, in the first half in particular, and even the first 3 quarters, I felt. And those 3 players, who we know are Dandenong's main scorers and their main weapons offensively, weren't able to get into it.
Well, they weren't, and the other thing that I thought Bendigo did a great job of is their usage of Gab Richards. They went inside to her, and whether or not she finished that first shot, Darren, she got offensive rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds, putbacks all the time, and got a lot of her points just purely on that.
Mark Wright, the Dandenong coach, was really upset with the ejection of Krista Phillips at halftime. Now, it's something that we spoke about in the call. I've certainly never seen it. I'm not sure if you have, but Krista Phillips, right at the end of the first half, got 2 technical fouls within 2 seconds, basically, and the Dandenong centre was thrown out of the game. Mark Wright said, his quote was to the paper, it ripped our guts out. Did you see it had a really significant impact on the game?
Oh, well, I did, absolutely. I think Luella Tomlinson did her best to, fill that gap. She's not used to playing huge minutes, and I thought she did a really credible job. But again, that's not only defending Gab Richards, it's a presence inside Krista Phillips herself. So she then opens it up for the shooters of the likes of Jenna O'Hea and Kathleen McLeod. And
a quick word on Deanna Smith's game. Docky had 30 points, pretty impressive.
She was just in the zone, and I love the way she did it. She was driving to the basket, coming off on balls, pulling up for threes, and she wanted that ball in her hands.
It was a wonderful win for the Bendigo Spirit. They get a 2-1 season advantage over the Dandenong Rangers, and there's more good news for them to come a little bit later in this weekend as we look back at what's just transpired in round 13. One of the other significant matches on Friday night was the Sydney Uni Flames hosting the Bulleen Boomers, and Laurie, the Bulleen Boomers jumped out of the blocks and they were never headed.
Well, that's right. I think on a real strong team performance initially, Darren, and it was great to see Rachel Jerry on the court. And I was speaking to Michelle Timms, and she said, she did a great job. She came out focused. She took really good shot selection, was great on the offensive boards, and overall made some great decisions.
And Liz Cambage's game, statistically, she was brilliant. 23 and 10, only 20 minutes.
You've got to be happy with that as the coaching staff, knowing that they're getting wins over these big teams, and Liz is only playing 20 minutes. Can you imagine if she's building now through the season and can play more and more, they're going to be a force certainly to reckon with.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They're looking extremely good at the moment, the Bulleen Boomers. The other game on Friday night, there were 2 more games, in fact, on Friday night. The Townsville Fire comfortably accounted for the AIS up north. Pretty impressive performance by them, particularly considering their star centre, Shanavia Dowdell, was lost to an ankle injury after just 4 minutes in the game. So there'll be a bit of an update on her status with Catherine Murphy a little bit later on in the news. And Susie Bakovic was once again dominant in Adelaide's comfortable victory over the West Coast Waves. A clean sweep for the Lightning, and they continue to romp along at the top of the WNBL table. Turning our attention to Sunday's games, and the Dandenong Rangers had to back up against West Coast. Both these teams were playing their second matches for the weekend. The Rangers got it done. It wasn't a super impressive win, but they did what they had to do against West Coast. Laurie, after the game, Jenna O'Hea was asked what she thought about the win, and she said that, look, we're happy with the win, but there's still things that aren't quite functioning as well as we would expect them to. What do you think the situation is with Dandenong? They've now lost four. They lost 4 in a row, then beat West Coast. They're in a bit of a slump. What are your observations as far as their offensive chemistry in particular?
Well, Darren, you know, technically things don't just change in the course of a week-to-week thing. You know, they know their offenses. They've got good defenses in place. To me, it certainly looks like, I don't know, their team chemistry is missing to me than it was at the beginning of the year. You used to see the bench jumping up, and certainly that televised game we had, I thought they looked more disjointed, not as together, maybe a little bit more one-on-one rather than really playing for each other, and I thought it was quite noticeable.
Hopefully Mark Wright and the girls can rectify that over the coming weeks, because they're still in with a shot at the playoffs and maybe even a home final, and with their talent, who knows how far they can go. All right, now it's time to talk about the most dramatic finish for well, certainly for this weekend. We've had quite a few this season, Laurie, so we'll have to
it would have to be close to the season best finish, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so. And as I mentioned, we've had plenty of people on Twitter getting in contact with us, wanting to see the last shot of the game and certainly the finish of the game. That's going to be coming up in a minute, Laurie, but let's just talk this through. I was at the game, you were following it. Bendigo were great in the first half, and then they were out on their feet. They were exhausted. Canberra got an 8-point lead with 1:42 to go, and I'd given it up.
Well, Darren, I was watching the live stats, and you know, minute 42, there was a timeout. Christy Harrow came off on high on-ball, easy shot. Then Tess Madgen got a steal, 2 points. So now it's down to 4 points. And I was interested to see that Deanna Smith was sitting and Heather Oliver was on. What a great sub by the coach, because 3-point shot went right in. Now they're up by 1.
Well, they weren't quite up by 1 just yet. They were still down by 1 at that point. It was Heather Oliver's only shot for the game, mind you. And then, of course, Christy stepped up with 6 seconds to go. This is what they created for them. Just remarkable stuff, really. I mean, and you were talking about it when you watched the vision before. It was a bit of an error there. Carrie Graff was a bit disappointed with the way that last play panned out for her Canberra side defensively, but gee whiz, I mean, when Christy can make a shot like that, there's not much else you can do. Great
drive and dish from Tess Madgen. Christy Harrow is just there, shot pocket ready. What a way to finish a game.
Wonderful win by the Bendigo Spirit. 1-point victors over Canberra. Makes it very tough for them in the run home to make the finals. The last game for the weekend was the Logan Thunder in the AIS, and as we expected, the Thunder were pretty impressive in their win over the Institute girls. Kayla Francis, her 10th double-double from 14 games this season. She's having a great year. All right, let's turn our attention to the ladder, and as we said before, Laurie, it's still the Adelaide Lightning out there on top. Ballina coming, Sydney are there. Bendigo, though, are the big movers up to 3rd.
Well, they're the big movers up to 3rd, and Dandenong certainly are the ones that have dropped down into 7th spot now. So, you know, they've got a real battle on their hand to get their way back into that 5.
All right, Laurie, we're going to be previewing round 14 in a couple of minutes' time, but right now it's over to Catherine Murphy with the news.
Thank you for that, Darren and Laurie. Well, we start with this week's Player of the Week, and the award goes to Bendigo's Deanna Smith after she led the way in the Spirit's victory over Dandenong. She scored 30 points, and that included an impressive 12 from 12 free throw attempts. Here's what she had to say to the ABC after the game.
Well, Deanna, that certainly keeps your finals hopes alive.
Yeah, it was a big game for both teams, and we knew, what was on the line, and that's only one for this weekend. We're into recovery now, and we've got another big game on Sunday against Canberra.
Unusual for the coach to talk to you straight after the game. What was Bernie's message just then?
Yeah, he was like, I'm not going to talk to you into the rooms. That's a solid win for us. I mean, they're a fantastic team, and to win here on our home court, and then he just wants us to concentrate on recovery because, again, big game Sunday.
And we have to talk about your own game, 29 points. You really were in the zone, Deanna. You really did have a great personal match.
Yeah, look, I mean, I got to the free throw line a lot, and the end of the game, Chris is like, just, hold the ball. We want them to foul you. So, again, I mean, it's our team defense, and then that leads to our offense. And, I'm just happy to start finding a little bit of form coming into the second half of the season.
And do you feel as a group that you are peaking at the right time? Because you sort of did this last year too. We'd written you off, and then you come back late.
Yeah, I think Bendigo have a bit of a habit of that, and, watching them last season as well. And, I mean, trainings have been a lot better since the Christmas break, and I think, we are finding some form as a team, and hopefully we'll just keep getting better and better, and we're looking to finals.
Well, good game, Docky, and good luck against Canberra on Sunday.
Thank you very much. And can I say hi to my mum? She's recovering from a knee surgery. So, hi, Mum. Thanks.
Congratulations to her. Now to some injury news from Townsville, and the club's star import Sinead Dowdell is expected to play this weekend despite injuring her ankle in Friday night's game against the AIS. The American star didn't return for the remainder of the game, but scans have cleared her of any serious injury. However, she is on a restricted training programme this week and will be monitored. In another boost for the club, the Townsville Stars also committed to playing with them for another year. And finally, the WNBL's finest have been out in force at the tennis. Jenna O'Hay made an appearance at Melbourne Park to watch Novak Djokovic in action, while there are also visits expected from Liz Cambage and Rachel Jarry. They're among a number of sports stars in Melbourne, which include Melbourne Victory skipper Adrian Leah and the club's star Harry Kuehl. So they're certainly mixing with sports elite. And what about you, Darren? Any visits to the tennis planned?
Well, I don't know about you, Laurie, but funnily enough, I think my VIP passes to the tennis must be lost in the mail. Probably alongside your present from Canada that you failed to...
I'm sure
you told me that you got me.
I'm sure it's coming.
All right, let's turn our attention to round 14. This is a huge week. I know I feel like we say it just about every week, but this week, when we actually have a look at these games up close and personal, I suppose, Laurie, you can see that it will really make or break the chances of some of these teams. Starting with the Canberra Capitals on Friday night. It's our ABC TV match for broadcast. They're taking on the Logan Thunder. And really, it's pretty simple now for Canberra. If they don't win every game, they're no chance to make the finals.
They have absolutely no room for error anymore. And the reality is they really need to probably now rely on other teams to lose. And mathematically, they're still in it. But while they're still alive, they just have to keep concentrating on their own game.
Really opposite game styles, I feel, in this one. Canberra sort of tend to grind it down. They're not an overly skillful team. They get results through their perseverance and hard work. Logan, when they play well, just seem to have the thing whizzed around and they can hit shots from anywhere and really exciting to watch. How do you think the teams will approach this?
Well, Logan, to me, Logan's sort of flown a little bit under the radar this season. We've talked about other teams, but I thought they would have started better with the group that they've got, a very consistent group. But, you know, they're getting it done. Kayla Francis, that'll be a great matchup with Tolo. You're right, though, Darren. They seem to have the ability to pile on points really quickly, whereas Canberra just want to make sure that they keep it in that court-to-court grind.
Well, that's going to be our match for broadcast. ABC TV coming up on Saturday afternoon. For those in the Canberra area, of course, you can get down to the AIS Arena on Friday night to actually watch the game live. Adelaide and Bendigo, another game on Friday. How good is this? The Lightning have won 8 in a row, but how good are the Spirit?
Well, and the last time these two teams met, Adelaide won by 9 points, and I don't think they've met since then. Right. So what a great challenge it is for Bendigo. They're on a real high right now, so it'll be interesting to see how they approach Susie Bakovic.
Well, speaking to Bernie Harrower on the weekend, he said the way that they tend to try and play the players, the bigger players, like Susie, like Liz, is try and drag them away. Certainly at the defensive end, that's how they try and do it. They drag her out and try and create some space. What about at the other end? How are they going to possibly limit her?
Well, you know, you can take the two tacks, whether you go, well, we'll just let Susie get her 30 and we'll try and minimize everybody else, or they do it, and they can do it really effectively, is you know, try and double team her and you know, triple team her and make the ball get out of her hands and force other players to do the scoring. So it'll be interesting to see which way Bernie goes. Seems
to me that Bendigo always have a couple of plans to combat other teams, and I know that we were talking about this on Saturday. That's ideally what coaches and teams should have, but it seems like Bendigo are pretty good at actually scheming defensively to try and create some headaches for their opponents.
Well, they are the best defensive team in the competition, and it shows in the way they play. And the other thing I like is they play a real team-oriented. We always talk about their offense, but their defense is very team-oriented as well. And if somebody does get beaten, you can really know that they rely on that help defense.
Up at the Townsville RSL Stadium on Friday night, the Fire are hosting the Sydney Uni Flames in the so-called Inferno Clash. And I tell you what, there'll be sparks everywhere in this one. Sinead Dowdell's fitness is obviously the primary concern, I think, for the Fire. If she can't play at 100%, I don't want to write them off too early, but it's hard to see them beating the Flames.
Well, Darren, interesting you say that, because I don't think that Sydney are riding particularly well right now. You know, since Evie Aviaki went down, I just don't think they've really quite regrouped yet and found that form that, you know, that they did have prior to that. So, you know, it's up in Townsville. We know it's hard to win up there. I'm sure it'll be a packed house, so I wouldn't write Townsville off.
I'm not doing that just yet, but they have lost 3 of their last 4, the Flames, so I think you're right. And last week, Alicia Poto didn't have a great game. I wonder, because Sydney relies so heavily on their starting sort of 3 or 4 players, Lauren King's come back into that lineup and she's providing some great backup. But I wonder if there might be a little bit of fatigue creeping in, or if teams are sort of working the Flames out a little bit.
Well, Darren, that was actually something I was going to ask you is you know, players that play big minutes, the Jen O'Hays, the Kath McLeods, Snell, Poto, does it progressively during the season build up? I know Mark Wright said before Christmas that Kath and Jenna were just exhausted, and because they're playing, you know, 36, 40 minutes, is it that wear and tear through the season that come right now, they're maybe not performing at their best? All
right, well, I'll try and crunch some numbers and have some answers for you in our telecast on Friday. Well, it'll go to air, of course, on Saturday afternoon. The Bulleen Boomers are probably the only team in the top 6 or 7 who don't have a really difficult engagement this week, and it's said with the utmost respect to the RAS, who have only had the 1 victory so far this season. The Boomers go to the Institute and they take them on Saturday night in a match that the Boomers are heavily favoured to win. The Dandenong Rangers have a pivotal clash with the Adelaide Lightning on Saturday night, and as I said before, the Rangers have lost 4 of their last 5 games, and really, this is, if there's ever a chance to beat one of the best teams in the comp, this is it. Adelaide coming off a match against Bendigo the night before, into their house, Dandenong fresh, they've got to put a win up.
Yeah, no, they don't get, you know, a lot of the teams have play Friday and then Sunday, but this time Adelaide have to play at home, then travel to Dandenong. And you're right, they'll just be ready, waiting for them. And a question again, Darren, I wanted to speak to you about is, are our expectations on somebody like Jenna and Kathleen, Snelly, Poto, are they really high? And that we talked about it in the coverage that, you know, we thought they were down in form and maybe not performing, yet they still had 16 and 18 points.
I think that's right, and I must admit, I was thinking about it on the weekend. I thought, I felt a little bit bad in some respects for saying that, you know, they only had, Jenna and Kathleen only had average games, but I think it's really noticeable that when the star players are relied upon so much by their teams, when they are just that little bit down, you do notice. And when the team is falling behind, you look to the stars, particularly those 2, and we've seen Jenna in big games and Kathleen really turn it on. And so I think you do have those high expectations, and honestly, I think the stars would have those expectations of themselves.
And that's why I think Bulleen probably have a little bit of an advantage going into this last bit of the season, in that their players play less minutes and they've got a wider spread of scoring. They don't have sort of somebody scoring 20-some points.
Well, there's plenty of hope for Rangers fans, I would say, because the last time these sides met, the Rangers had a shot to win it. They only lost by 2 points over in Adelaide. So they'll be, I think they'll be ready and firing for this one, and the Rangers will put on a good performance. 2 more games to round out round 14. The West Coast Waves will host the Bendigo Spirit on the back end of their road double. We know that they're going to be a little bit fatigued, the Spirit, but I think they'll go into this game with plenty of confidence against the Wave side, who are desperate to rack up their 2nd victory of the season. And the last match in the round is in Logan on Sunday afternoon. I'm going to be there, Laurie, once again for WNBL Radio. You can hear that right around the country and through your Red Time Sport app on your iPhone. You can download that for free. The Logan Thunder taking on the Sydney Uni Flames. Break it down for us.
Well, again, Sydney at least have that 1 day off between their game between Townsville and going to Logan. Sydney aren't going to want to slide any further down the ladder, and you know, they'll be really focusing on that Townsville game, as you have to when you're in a double. So Logan should be pretty confident that they can go in and know that Sydney are coming there a little bit fatigued and really stick to their game plan.
And they did beat the Flames last time they met, so it's 1-1 this season. I'm predicting another very close one.
Well, I think I would go with Logan if I had to pick somebody right now.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I was about to ask you. All right, Laurie, have a rest. We'll just put our clipboards down and be back again in 1 week's time after what we expect will be another thrilling round in the Women's National Basketball League. We'll look forward to your company then.